Welcome once again to the Our Man in Stockholm podcast. My name is Philip O'Connor, but if you're listening or watching this one, because we're going to put it out on video, you probably know that already. Now, back in 2017, I was assigned to cover cross-country skiing and biathlon at the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang. So one of the first things I did was to contact a promising young Swedish biathlete by the name of Sebastian Samuelsson. When we first spoke, I was very impressed by his passion, his maturity, and his love of the sport. A few months later, we did another interview where he criticized Russia in particular for not taking the subject of doping seriously, and that interview led to him receiving death threats. That part of the story ended with him winning an Olympic gold medal, and his campaign for clean sport continues. And he joins me now after a long season. Sebastian, how are you after that long season?
I'm tired, but I'm very, very happy. I had a successful season, and I'm just enjoying the fact that the season is over now. It will be a lot of resting for me, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. I have to say I'm enormously grateful because this is actually the first day of your vacation, and yet you put half an hour aside to talk to me. So I'm going to start. We'll jump right into the whole idea. When was the first time you realized that you were competing against people who were doping?
Whoa, that's a hard question. I never thought about that. I think I realized quite early. I think when I did my first World Cups, then I was thinking, okay, now I probably compete against some people who are using doping or have been using doping. And I think that was the first time, because for me, it was because I competed on a high junior level as well, but there you didn't think about it, and you always thought that it must be clean athletes here. But I would say that today I might suspect that this goes down also in the junior level of competing. So I think, but the first World Cups, yes.
Did you notice anything different? Because I think you were, at the point I spoke to you, I think the previous year you were voted, sort of the most promising biathlete in the world. You were the talented guy that everybody was going to watch. But when you step up to the World Cup, what changes? Because we're talking about a sport here where you ski very, very quickly, but you also have to be able to shoot. So how does doping help people in your sport?
It helps a lot because we have this endurance part. It takes a lot of time, a lot of years to be good in biathlon because you need your strong physique. And some people take shortcuts, and I think that what is nice is that you cannot cheat with the shooting, but you can ski faster and you can be stronger in general. And I think that's the part where people try to cheat.
As a journalist, we can only write about like 5% of the things we hear and the things we know, right? And obviously when it comes to cheating, we have to be very, very careful at who we point our fingers at. Do you sort of look around the field of, your competitors, the guys who would be sort of, in the same field, and do you think, I think that guy is up to something, or I think that girl is up to something?
No, I try not to. I think if I did that, I would be crazy after a while. And also when I speak about doping, I try to be general. I want to speak about the systems in place, the leadership who is not working, and this kind of things. I try not to point the fingers at any athletes, but the problem is that often you get questions about certain athletes, and especially when there is athletes that have been cheating before. And I think that's maybe a different topic then. Then I think, okay, if you have using a EPO, for example, and then you come back after 2 years, then I think you should be able to criticize that. So that I can do, but I try not to point my finger against any athlete that I cannot know if they're using doping or not. But as you said, you can only write about 5% of what you hear, and I think it's the same for the athletes, because you hear this rumor about people, and you can think that, okay, it's maybe a little bit strange that every time it's a championship, this guy is much faster than he has been before, and this kind of things. But I try not to think that way, and when I myself is on the starting line, I try to just focus on my own race and not to think about this topic.
You did point a finger at Russia that time, and I remember when we talked, I think it was just either just before or during, at the very start of the Olympics, and you did point a finger at Russia, and you did say, look, this is not right. They were competing as the Olympic athletes of Russia at the time. They weren't allowed to compete under their own flag. Why did you choose to single them out? What made you feel confident that, you know, it's okay to say this because this has gone so far now?
Yeah, to be honest, I think I was very frustrated because at this time the Russian anti-doping agency Rusada was not compliant with the World Anti-Doping Code, and despite this, the Biathlon World Cup would have these finals in Tumen in Russia, and I was very outspoken against this, and it was some people that were too, that why are we going to a country to compete where they have all these problems? They are not compliant with the WADA code and etc. And I think that was my main criticism at that time. And yeah, I was very frustrated because I felt that the International Biathlon Union didn't listen to us athletes, that we didn't want to go there. And there were also a lot of evidence with the McLaren report, the Smith report, and so that there has been systematic state-run doping program in Russia. And I think it's important to talk about it. And I have always seen it as, for me, I cannot understand why the Russian athletes, they must want this too. I don't understand why they don't are more outspoken, because it's important for them too. It's not fun to be a Russian athlete these days because you are always going to get a lot of suspicion against you. And you don't know, can I compete at the Olympics? Can I compete at the World Championships or not? Because there is always this decisions going to be taken if they can compete or not. And therefore, they would want to change the system too. And I think that's the biggest problem here, that they have this system in place with these old leaders and they never go back. They just continue this doping program.
I went to the World Cup in soccer in 2018. And I had been at the Olympics in Sochi as well. So Sochi was a place I knew reasonably well. And if you remember this documentary, I can't remember, was it called Icarus? This documentary that was made about. And I realized that as we sat eating dinner one night before Sweden played in Sochi, that was actually the building where they had switched the urine samples and the blood samples. So, you know, it was amazing to sit there and to realize, going, hang on a fucking second, this is where all this went down.
And it's crazy. And you mean, you cannot imagine it. You cannot think before that this would happen. And even today, when you think about it, you think, is sports so important that they are willing to do all these things? And you mean people, I mean Rodchenko, for example, he lives in USA, he changes the way he looks, his appearance, and he lives in secret place. It's crazy because he fears for his life. And then I think it has gone far way too long.
Very, very quickly after our conversation, I remember saying to you that the things you said, you were going to boycott the last World Cup tournament of the year, if I remember rightly, in Russia. I remember saying to you before our conversation ended that this was going to be a big story. And you said, that's fine. I want this to come out. And a few hours later, when the story did come out, you were getting death threats on social media in Russian, in English. You probably got one or two in Swedish as well. What was that like when you're sitting in Pyeongchang trying to get ready for the Olympics, the highlight of your sporting life, and you're getting death threats from people you don't know?
Yeah, I think luckily today, I think when I said these things and when I was so outspoken on Twitter, for example, that I didn't expect it to be that big that you were telling me. And I think if I truly had known how big this would be, maybe I would be quiet, because to have that in my first Olympics, to deal with this, and also I got a lot of questions in Mixdown Extra after every race just about this topic, and it was very special and frightening at first, because when you see the first matches, maybe it's in Russian and you don't understand it, and then in the beginning I tried to translate what are they writing to me, and you say, okay, this is not nice comments, and you start to think, am I wrong at this point? Have I missed something? Am I so stupid that they are saying that I am? But for me, my belief in this has always been so strong, and I think it's so important to talk about it, and therefore I also said to myself, I cannot let this people affect me. I cannot let them make so that I should answer differently or don't answer at all, and so. And one thing I have realized also is that at this point, it doesn't matter if sometimes you try to answer more soft. You get, maybe from a Russian journalist, you get questions and then you try to be a little bit more diplomatic. But I have realized it doesn't matter if I'm diplomatic or not, because they still think that I deserve to die and all these things. And therefore it has been more easy to, okay, I don't need to smooth things in. I can say exactly how I think it is, because it doesn't matter. And that's also a relief in one kind of way.
Have you ever been afraid, Sebastian?
No, not afraid. I'm uncomfortable, I would say. And it was one time, I mean, you quite quickly get used to get comments on Instagram and direct message on Instagram and so. And I think that's, in one way, I can deal with that. But when I get private emails and this kind of things, then I think I think that's harder. And it's one time I have actually gone to the police with an email I got, and it was like a Russian death squad was coming and I should pay, I don't know how many bitcoins it was, but to get the information so I could be safe and this kind of things. And that time I thought, this is not nice. And you think, is it worth it? But yes, I think it is, because it's so important.
Obviously, you're speaking out about athletes. You meet Russian athletes. You race against Russian athletes every week, or almost every week of the season. Has any of them ever said to you, ever said anything about this to you?
No, and I think that's strange too. I mean, and most of them are nice. Many of them doesn't speak English, but the ones who do, they congratulate me when I do a good race. They say hi when I meet them in the corridor and so. And sometimes before Corona, maybe you met them in the dining area and you sit down and you can talk a little bit. And I think every time, do they know what I have said? Do they care? It's a strange feeling, but I don't know. Maybe they don't read the news, or they don't care, or I mean, it's a little bit strange.
Yeah. There's a famous Irish journalist, a man named Paul Kimmage, and he was a professional cyclist, and he wrote a book called Rough Ride in the 1980s, where he revealed the culture of doping in cycling. And in French, there's an expression of spitting in the soup. So, you're spitting in the soup that everybody else eats. And he was just, an outcast after that. Nobody in the sport wanted to be part of him. And he stopped being a professional cyclist and he went to being a journalist. Have you felt rejected by other people in the sport? Because you still seem to be a very popular man amongst your fellow biathletes.
Yeah, I would say the opposite, actually. And that sometimes has been frustrating, because you can speak with athletes that are maybe one of the best biathletes in the world, and they can come to me and they can say, I think what you're doing is really great. I admire you for that, but I don't want to speak publicly. And sometimes you feel, yes, but it's really important that you do it. Yeah. And I think that's changing now. I think more and more athletes try to also make an impact on other things. It doesn't have to be doping. It can be, human rights and all these things. And I think it's really important. But yeah, I have always felt that the majority of the athletes feel the same like me, and they have also told it to me. And I think that's a nice way of showing support.
If we go back to Pyeongchang in 2018, as I say, you were one of the most talented, one of the most promising biathletes. You pretty much said to me that you thought that you could make a podium in the Olympics. And I was thinking, I like this guy's confidence, because Swedish people tend to be quite reserved. They don't make statements like that. And yet you told me you're going to do it. Then you won a silver medal, and then you won a gold medal in the relay. Can you just describe what it was like for me? Because I was just watching, before I started to talk to you here, I was just watching the footage of the finish of the relay where you went to greet your teammate. I can't even remember who did. Was it Jesper did the last leg? Of that?
Fredrik Lindström.
Fredrik Lindström, yeah. And just all you guys rushing over to congratulate him as you won the gold medal. Could you just explain what that whole experience was like for you?
For me, it was crazy, and I don't remember telling you that I thought I could make a podium. I'm sure I did, and But even if I did that, I think that maybe I didn't really believe it myself. So when I did it, it was, you know, it's cliche to say it, but it was a dream for me to be an Olympian and to be able to take an Olympic medal. And I did in my second ever Olympic race. And I was only, 21 years old. So for me, it was, pure happiness. And it just kept on going this whole 2 weeks period in Pyeongchang. It was good races after each other, and the whole team, no one expected that the biathletes from Sweden would take a medal, and we took 4, and it was a great experience. And I think what was most fun was to see how much it meant for everyone. And also when I took the first medal, and the girls in the team, they were sitting and crying, and then you think, whoa, this is huge. And also it's a nice feeling to see that they really wanted me to succeed, and they really wanted to share this with me. It was no jealousness or anything like this. Everybody was just so happy, and I think that was the reason that we could manage to go on and then take 4 medals.
That was a very young Swedish biathlon team. It's still a very young Swedish biathlon team at those Olympics. How much did that help, that you're all around the same age? You know, did you all hang out together? Was there a great team spirit in that Olympics and after that Olympics?
Yeah, I think so. And I went to school with many of them, and many of the others went to school together. So I think we have known each other for quite some time. And we had a nice time. We everybody was, I think it was only Fredrik Lindström that had done the Olympics before. All the others were debutants, and I think that just made the whole experience so new and so cool and fun and everything. And I think we managed to take a lot of energy from that.
You mentioned schooling there as well, because you're kind of from Sörmland, which is a place that you were born in this place, and then you moved up to Sollefteå, which is further north. Okay, so when you mentioned going to school there, did you go to the Östersund, where they have the biathlon program for upper secondary school students?
No, it was the same program, but in Sollefteå. Yeah,
in Sollefteå. Okay, and there was a bunch of those, the same biathletes were in school with you there. Yeah.
Yeah, like Hanna Öberg, Anna Magnusson, and them were there as well. So they are older than me, so not the whole period, but we knew each other. And biathlon is, I mean, it's a big sport, but in terms of number of athletes, and especially in Sweden, I think it's not so many. So you knew each other very well even before you get into the national team and so.
How do you get interested in biathlon? Because I can understand with all the snow in that part of the world that you go, okay, I put on skis and I go skiing, right? But where does the guns come into it? What was it that made you think that this is what I want to do?
Yeah, I started cross-country skiing first, but then it was the Swedish championships in Sollefteå where I lived, as we said, and I was up there watching, and I mean, if you're a young boy and you see guns, then you think it's quite cool. So at this time, the club in Sollefteå had this test evening you could try, and I tried, and I thought I was a terrible shooter, but I thought it was fun, and I also thought, okay, I do cross country 2 evenings a week, and I think it's fun, and now I can do this 2 evenings as well. So then I will get more fun evenings. So that's the reason why I started, and then. As I said, I was a terrible shooter, but I always improved, and I thought that was fun.
What's the hardest part of the sport? Because I got to be honest with you, I've been in the ski stadium in Östersund, and I've been at the point where you stand or you lie down, you shoot. I can't even see the target at the other end. So is the shooting the hardest part, or is it the skiing, or does it depend on the course?
I think it's the combination. You need to in the skiing you need to be pushing a lot, but then you come into the shooting range, and then you need to be calm, and you need to have a focused mind. And I think that's it's like cross-country skiing. It's so different, cross-country skiing and shooting. So that's the combination of that is the hardest point. And then also when you stand there for a last shooting and you know, okay, now I have 5 shots. If I hit all 5, then I will be Olympic champion. You could think so long that, okay, my whole life will change and all these things. And then it's hard to hit those targets.
Do you have that thing of, butterflies in your stomach when you're taking that, or can you sort of block everything out and just try to make those shots?
No, I get butterflies still every time. Every time you come in and you know, okay, now I'm shooting for a podium place, then you have butterflies. Yeah.
Well, I can't even imagine doing it, because it seems so difficult to sort of to calm down and then just try to fire those 5 shots. And then you see people like yourself and Martin Fourcade, who was brilliant at the last Olympics, Hannah Urby that you mentioned. It's just over the last couple. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can. I'm not a good soccer player, but I think you can compare it with a penalty shootout. This last shooting, and I think that's what makes it so exciting and such a good TV sport and all these things, because it cannot really be more exciting than that.
Oh yeah, like the last 5 shots in any biathlon race, it doesn't matter, because
Yeah, that's true. It's true. Yeah, and there is so many people that can be up there, and it's hard to predict the outcome.
Yeah, it's incredible drama. I mean, I love that. Even though where you were shooting in Pyeongchang, where the cross country and the biathlon took place, I was staying where the alpine skiing was happening. So I had like an hour's bus ride every night. And I remember going home after you won your gold or your silver medal and thinking, that guy doesn't know how big this is yet. And like you were saying, with the girls crying afterwards and everything that happened, and then to go and win a gold medal after that, it was just, the drama of it was absolutely incredible. It was a joy to see you there in the mix zone.
Yeah, and I think the reason that I managed to succeed because I hit the last 5 targets in that race where I took the silver medal, and I think I thought much about it afterwards, and I think the reason that I managed to do it was that I didn't realize how hard it was. For me, it was just crazy. Suddenly, out from nowhere, I was in top of the field and I had a chance of a medal. And for me, it was just surrealistic. It was like, this is not happening. It cannot be true. And I think after that, it was some years when I felt, when I really knew, okay, this is hard. It's not easy. And I think that was the luck for me that time, that I hadn't realized how hard it was.
Do you know, how much do you know? So we'll say towards the end of a race in the World Championships, for instance, you're coming in to the last shoot, Johannes Thingnes Boe from Norway is right behind you. Do you know approximately where you are, what you need to do, or do you just go and ski your own race and hope for the best? Because there are differences between, the pursuit starts and the relays, and everything changes, right?
Yeah, you have a lot of information actually. The coaches out there, they scream to you, okay, you're number 2, you have 10 seconds down to Johannes Boe, and then then you come to a new place, and then okay, now he's 7 seconds behind, and okay, he has skied 3 seconds faster in this area, and also in the individual races, when you not compete head to head, it's still, in a sprint race, okay, if you should clean in prone shooting, and then you ski on, and then you hear on the coach that, okay, I'm skiing good, and then okay, if I hit these 5 targets, then I will have a chance for a podium. So I think you realize and you understand that you're doing something good, and it's a lot of pressure.
You mentioned a subject a little bit earlier on, which has been in the news because of soccer recently, and that's the subject of human rights. You have soccer players who are saying that they want to see things change for human rights in Qatar. And now we have a Winter Olympics coming up next year in Beijing, in China. Is that something that you have thought about? Is that something that causes you sleepless nights? I haven't decided if I'm going to go to Beijing or Qatar. I think I should go if there's news to be reported, but I don't want to be part of saying, oh, this is the greatest thing ever to happen. I want to try to find that balance. As an athlete, do you think about those human rights things as well?
Yes, and I think I can only say, sorry, I can only say that I think it's what should I say? I'm disappointed at the leaders in sports that time again and again and continue to give these championships to these nations where human rights is not being respected. I mean, China has a lot of problems, Qatar has a lot of problems, and I think that's terribly wrong. But on the other hand, I think also that it's I mean, Olympics, it's once every 4 years, and it's the biggest thing you can do as an athlete. And it simply is not possible to say, okay, I cannot go there. You have to go there as an athlete because it's too big to miss out. And I'm actually pissed off that it is like that, because you could say that they are forcing us to go to Beijing to compete in a country that shouldn't have the Olympics. They are forcing us because they know that it's not possible to boycott this event. And I'm angry about that, and I hope in the future that will change. But you also see, if you look at the bidding for the Olympics 2026, Stockholm was bidding to get it. In the end, it was Milan Cortina who took it. And I mean, Italy is a good country, so I have no problems with that. The problem I have is that the IOC says that, okay, in the future we want more cheaper Olympics. It should be more, what do you say, for the environment, and it should be better Olympics, not so many costs. And then it was with this Agenda 2026. And then I think Stockholm comes out with a bid that is like this. It's cheaper, it's not so many costs, it's better for the environment and everything. But they have no chance to get the Olympics. It was clear so many days before the actual voting. Sweden, Stockholm, no chance. And this is because these IOC people and all this kind of thing, they don't want cheap Olympics. They say they want, but they want to go to Milano and they want to have, I don't know, nice wine so they can sit there and enjoy their life. And I think that's, it's not nice, and it's not fair against the athletes, and it's not fair against the people who love sports.
One final question. Again, just before speaking to you today, I was going back over some of the stories, the ones that I've written about you, but also some stories that other people have written about you. And one writer for Sportbladet, the biggest sports newspaper in the country, has referred to you as a possible future Swedish Prime Minister. Can you ever see yourself going into politics? Because you are a man of strong opinions.
Yeah. No, I don't. I think my mother has said that I should be the Prime Minister sometime. But no, I'm very interested in politics. I think it's really fun, and I like to listen to the debates and so. But I don't think, if you see, it's the same with sports now. I think the political side, you need to be from the beginning. You need to be young, and you need to go through this federations. They have all these steps. It's more like a career now than it was before, I think. And so I think it's very hard to, I don't know, say when you're 35 that, okay, I'm switching to politics. I think that's hard. And I think maybe I'm not the right person also. But I think it's very interesting, and I like to take part of the debates once in a while.
There's also still a long, long way to go before you retire. And Sebastian, no matter where you're competing, I hope to see you in a mixed zone somewhere at the end of a biathlon race very soon. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you. It was nice that you could have me.